Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for the learning of Torah Hashem Be'ezus Hashem Yisbarach. With tremendous hodah, thanks to Hashem, I say Baruch Shechianu v'Kimanu v'Giyanu Lazman Hazeh, to another year of the great privilege to teach Torah to the masses, starting once again with the glorious learning of Braishis Gems. And in honor of this special share, we have now a diamond sponsorship. This year there's a regular sponsorship and a diamond sponsorship. Diamond sponsorship by a dear Talmud of mine from London, Ed Saleh, who is sponsoring the share, thanking me for the work that's put into it, and with the wish for a good Kvittel and winter to all of Klal Yisrael. And today, we also got a partial sponsorship from Shifra Kashani, in loving memory of her mother, Mindel Toiba Bas Arya Leib. Her neshama should have a lichtige Gan Eden. Should be a Melitz Yeshara for her family, for all of us, and all of Klal Yisrael. I want to thank the sponsors that allowed me to do my work of Harbatzas Torah. If you would like to sponsor one of these Chumash Yurim that are heard by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, eventually over thousands, and through the different mediums, for sure, over 1,000 people across the globe. 718-916-3100. You can text me, 718-916-3100, or email me to rmmwsi@aol.com. That's Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss, Staten Island, at aol.com. We thank TorahAnytime.com for continuing to give us such a global platform, equally thanking the worldwide network of Kol HaLashon and YouTube, our Zoomers, our subscribers, and those of you that are with us here in our flagship station at the Aglis Shobei Zeva Fairways Lakewood. If you look at the Sefer Torah, you'll see that the first word Braishis is written with a Beis Rabossi, with a larger Beis than the other letters. And while some people just think it's it's there for pleasing graphics, that's actually the Masorah, that it has, different places in the Torah, it has a small letter, like the Aleph of Vayikra is a small Aleph. The Beis of Braishis is a oversized Beis. Now, why is that? So the first Gerer Rebbe, the Chidush Arim, says that oversized Beis refers to bias. Beis is written Beis Yud Saf, and it means a bias, a house. He says that oversized Beis starts the Torah with the house. And we're not going to go into his explanation now. I wanted to take his explanation of the Beis and say that the very first lesson of the Torah with the big Beis is that the bias, one's home, is rachis. Right? If you start with bias, then of the word Braishis, you're left with rachis. The bias, the house, has to be first. What an important Torah principle. Many, many, many people don't put their house first. There isn't much glory in what we do in the house. What we do it outside of the house, we get attention. We win friends. We get honor. We get recognition. What we do in the house, So the Torah starts that you have to know the bias, that's the Beis Rabasi, the bias is Braishis. What you do in the house that comes first. Now, by the way, this is a Torah principle that Aniyei Ircha Koidem, the poor of your city comes first. Let's say you're living now in Lakewood, but you like your alma mater. You come from Chaim Berlin, you like to give to Chaim Berlin. But first you have to support the people in your town. Because if you don't support the people in your town, who's going to support them? That's the way it works. You have to make sure that you support your shul. Because nobody else is going to care about your shul. They don't daven there. They daven in their shul. So before you do anything else, you have to support your shul, because if you don't support your shul, who's going to support it? Now, if this is true, in the aforementioned example, it's definitely true with one's house. If you don't take care of your house, who's going to take care of it? You know that a husband and wife, they could provide things to one another that no one else can provide. That's the nature of it. Between Jewish people, the calming effect of touch, the oxytocin, and the other hormones which are initiated through touch of the opposite sex can only be done by a husband to a wife and a wife to a husband. That makes these activities of the absolute importance, because other things could be provided by other people. And therefore, the very first lesson of the Torah is bias Braishis. The house comes first. And the same thing is true. It's not only spousal devotion. It's also attention to one's children. That's also something that can't be provided from another source. The Chanoich Lenar Al Pi Darkai has to be done by a parent. So Bayis Braishis, the house has to come first. That's the very first lesson of the Torah. Now, over the years, I told you many things about Braishis. That the word Braishis, the Vilna Gaon says, the Rav Sadia Gaon says that in the word Braishis is all 630 mitzvahs. We don't know how. But the Gaon did. They asked him, well, where do you see Pidyon HaBen? So he right away off the cuff said that Braishis stands for Ben Rishon Achar Shloshim Yomim Tifteh. The first son after 30 days he redeemed. There are many secrets in Braishis. Braishis is B'Aleph Tishrei, because man was created on Aleph Tishrei. The world was created Chafei Elul, but man was created B'Aleph Tishrei. Braishis is Yorei Shabbos. It's Yorei Braishis. You should be afraid of embarrassing people. Braishis is an acronym of Amen Yesh Mei Rabba Bakol Tefillah. Braishis is Barasa Shai. You created 310 worlds. It says also called Tzadik v'Tzadik. Every righteous person is going to Lahanchil Shai Olamis is going to get 310 worlds of reward. That's in Braishis, Baras Shai. If you remember, I told you that Braishis, until Rashi came around, the Torah was a sealed book. People didn't know much about Torah without Rashi. Rashi opened it up to the whole world. That's why Braishis is also the letters Rashi Tavai. Rashi will come. Now, there's a lot more in Braishis, but I wanted to share you some things that I haven't mentioned. The Balaturim says, Braishis, by the way, is Gematria 913. The exact Gematria of B'Torah Yotzar, that with the Torah Hashem created the world. B'Torah Yotzar is also 913. Now this is consistent with the words of the Zayar, Istakel ba'oraisa u'bara alma. Hashem looked in the Torah and created the world. In other words, the Torah is the blueprint of creation. In other words, Hashem created what we call nature in order to facilitate Torah. So a simple example of this is that since Hashem wanted parents to do the mitzvah of chinuch to their children, right? V'shinantam levanecha. Therefore, he made genetics. Because through the system of genetics, our children are like us, and therefore we could understand them better, and together with our wife, sometimes it's more similar to our wife, sometimes it's more similar to us, sometimes it's an amalgam, something more similar to the man. So Hashem made genetics in order to facilitate chinuch. So istakel baraisa, he looked in the Torah, ubara ha'olam, and he created the world, and that's what it means. Braishis gematria b'Torah yotzar. He created the world with the Torah. Now here's another thing that's amazing. The gematria of Braishis 913 is Taryag Yotzar. He created 613. That's very simple, by the way, to figure out, because Taryag is 613 and Yotzar is 300, right? So that's 913. But Braishis is Taryag Yotzar. You know, people want to know, why did I come to this world? Well, Braishis bara likim es hashamayim v'es haaretz. For Braishis, Taryag Yotzar, he created the 613 mitzvahs. And that's why, as much as we can, we should try to do as many mitzvahs as we can. That's why we were created. So that's why somebody says to you, I heard that you could go to this place and do the mitzvah of Shiluach HaKan, you should run. You know, they say people have a bucket list. You have a Taryag list. Wow, I never did Shiluach HaKan. We were put in this world to do 613 mitzvahs. Now, you can't do, obviously we can't do anywhere near 613 mitzvahs. You know, we don't have a Beis Hamikdash. We can't bring the karbanas. We can't go aliyah l'regel. There are many mitzvahs that we can't do, but even that, we could want to do them. That's what it says about Yaakov. It says, Im Lavan Garti. He lived with Lavan. So Rashi is bothered in his way. Rashi doesn't ask questions. He just explains it so you don't have a question. But why doesn't it say the more classic Im Lavan Yoshafti? What's Im Lavan Garti? So Rashi spots that Garti is the same letters as Taryag. So Rashi says, Im Lavan Garti v'Taryag mitzvah shamarti. And I kept the 613 mitzvahs. Now that can't be. Because he didn't do kibbut avim. That's why he was punished 22 years without Yosef, because he didn't do kibbut avim. So what does Rashi mean? What does it mean that Yaakov said, Im loven garti v'tayeg mitzvah shemarti? He wasn't in Eretz Yisrael. So he couldn't do the mitzvahs of Eretz Yisrael. So he couldn't do Torah. So what does it mean, Im loven garti v'tayeg mitzvah shemarti? Shemarti means that he pined, he waited to do it. He wanted to do it. Like it says, Va'aviv shamar es hadavar. Yaakov looked forward to the fulfillment of Yosef's dreams. So even if we can't do taryag, but when you put on your talis and you hold it above your head, the talis is equal to all 630 mitzvahs. Tzitzis is B'gematria 600, with the 5 knots and 8 threads. It's 613. We hold it and we say, oh, I really want to have a makkah on my roof. I really would wish that I could keep Shemitah. I really wish I could keep Trumas and Mice. I really wish I could bring a carbon shlamim. I really wish I could do Aliyah L'Regel. That's Braishis Gematria Taryag Yotzar. Have in mind Taryag. Says the Balaturim Braishis, if you make an anagram, it's Bayis Rosh, the chief house. Because it says that Hashem created from the beginning the Beis Hamikdash. It's a pasuk. Moraim Meirishain Mekayim Mikdashenu. Already from the beginning, he had the place of his temple. It's Bayis Rosh. But isn't that amazing? Because Braishis is also Barosh Taf Yud. Because the first temple existed 410 years. Taf Yud. That's all there in Braishis. It's all there. And why is it in the beginning of the Torah? Not just because the Beis Hamikdash was there from the beginning, but also the fact that it was destroyed after 410 years. That's Tala es Yerushalayim al Rosh Simchosei. At the head of our joy, we're opening up a chumash that's our joy. Ain't Simcha K'Simchas HaTorah. We mentioned the destruction of the temple after 410 years. There's a lot of Torah how we connect the end of the Torah to the beginning of the Torah. The end of the Torah ends La'enei Kol Yisrael, and then it starts Braishis. We know the famous story that Talmei HaMelech locked 70 sages into 70 different rooms and told them to translate the Torah into Greek. And miraculously, they all made the same changes. All 70 of them, instead of saying Braishis bara Elikim, they wrote Elikim bara Braishis. The reason why they changed it is because they knew the guy, if it said Braishis bara Elikim, they would translate it to mean that God used Rashis, building blocks, to create the world. Now that's not true. The world was created miraculously, yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, ex nihilo. But they knew that the guy would not understand that, so they changed it to Elikim bara Braishis. We don't translate it that way. We know Braishis bara Elikim, it means Braishis b'shvil ha-Torah shenikaraishis, b'shvil she-Yisrael shenikaraishis. So la'enei kol Yisrael, it could be Braishis bara Elikim. For the eyes of Jews, for the eyes of a guy, it has to be Elikim bara Braishis. The great and holy Rabbi Kiva Eger, Zecher Tzadik v'Kodesh L'Vracha, Schus Yagin Aleinu, the incredible Gadol Ador, Rabbi Kiva Eger, he says the Torah starts with a base, Braishis, and ends with a Lamed, La'enei Kol Yisrael. Says that spells Leiv. Because hopefully when you learn the Torah from beginning to end, you'll get a good Jewish heart. But he says that what's the letters before Lamed and Beis? The letter before Beis is Aleph. The letter before Lamed is Ach. Chaf, and the Chaf. So that's Ach. Ach is a limitation, is a miyat. What's the letter after Beis? Gimel. And the letter after Lamed is Mem. That's Gam. Gam is a ribui. That's more. So he has a fascinating lesson, which we're going to learn in the Mishnah Yomis as we finish Masechtas Menachos this week. We're going to learn that Echad HaMarba ve'Echad HaMamet, whether you're rich and you bring a very big bull, or you're poor and you bring the smallest meal offering, Echad HaMarba ve'Echad HaMamet u'bilvad sheyichaven libo l'shamayim. The main thing is that your heart should be directed to heaven. It's not the quantity, it's the quality. Person can't afford, but if he brings it with his whole heart, that's what counts. So that's the ach and the gam, whether it's a little, whether it's a lot, as long as there's leiv. That's the way Rabbi Kiva Eger looked at it. The Vilna Gaon said something else very fascinating. The Vilna Gaon said, it says, leiv chacham liyamin, v'leiv ksil l'smel. The heart of the wise is to the right, the heart of the fool is to the left. To the right of leiv is ach, right? To the right side, the aleph is before the beis, and the chaf is before the lamed. That's ach, that's small. The chacham knows to be humble. V'leiv ksil l'smel. The heart of the fool is to the left. That's the gimel and the mem. Gam, that's more. That's haughtiness. He says that the wise person, he knows to be humble. He knows to be like Moshe Rabbeinu, like Avram Avinu, like David HaMelech. The fool is about self-aggrandizement. That's gam. That's more. It's interesting that the Kedushas HaLevi talks about that the Torah starts with a beis. I always say, and the Baal HaTurim says in the beginning of the Torah that the Torah starts with a beis to tell us that there's two Torahs, Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh, the written law and the oral law. And then he says that there's two worlds. It's from the Braishis Rabbah. There's two worlds, Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. And as I explain here in Shul, in the last moments of Simchas Torah, when you ask somebody why does the Torah start with a beis, they're not very impressed. What do you mean why the Torah starts with a beis? Because the word for in the beginning starts with a beis. Yeah, but Hashem wrote the dictionary. He could have made the word for in the beginning start with an aleph. And as we explained, he could have said Elikim bara Braishis, giving the same message and starting the Torah with an aleph. He started the Aseret Sadibros with an aleph, Anochi Hashem Elikecha. Why didn't he start the Torah with an aleph? So you'll say, yeah, still it doesn't bother me very much, you know. Ask me a meaty question. This question really doesn't tickle me. That's because you don't understand the sheer magnitude of the question. The sheer magnitude of the question is that we just said that istakel baraisa or bara alma. Hashem looked in the Torah and created the world. That it's the blueprint of everything. As it says in the last Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Ben Bagbag Omer. Ha-foichba de kulaba. Turn it around, everything is in it. It has all the secrets of everything. Lekamida de loy remiza baraisa. There isn't anything that's not hinted in the Torah. Nothing. The 25th word in the Torah is Ar, because it would be the 25th of Kislev, it would be Festival of the Lights. There's nothing in the Torah. There's nothing in the world that's not hidden in the Torah. There would come a man who would claim that he had a virgin birth, a Jew, and therefore it says in the Torah, Ki yisischa achicha ben imecha. If you're seduced to idolatry by your brother who is the son of a mother, and if he's the son of a father, not just your mother, it wouldn't apply, but it means that there's going to be a achicha, a brother, that's going to claim that he's ben imecha, only the son of a mother. It's everything. There's lekem midei deloy remiza baraisa. There's nothing. So if I told you that Ramosha Feinstein, together with the Satmar Rebbe, wrote a pamphlet on how to succeed in life, you would for sure want to get your hands on it. But what I would see was, what did they put on the first page? What did they consider so important that they wanted to be the first lesson? Well, guess what? What's the first lesson of the Torah, which contains everything? The first lesson is the answer to the first question. And the first question is, why does the Torah start with a base? Now is it a better question? Now is it a more important question? Says the Medrash, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, it's to tell us that there are two worlds. Two worlds. See, when you learn Braishis, you learn about the upper waters, the lower waters, seeing the dry land, then the grass, the fruit with the seeds in it. You learn about the sun, the moon, the fish, the birds, the animals, man. It's all about this world. So Torah says, don't be misled. The very first lesson, two worlds. Don't be a fool. Don't live on this world only for this world. If you lived on this world only for this world, you missed the first lesson in the Torah base, that there's two worlds. Got to prepare for the next world. But the Heilige Kedushas Levi, the Heilige Bedicheva, says that the Torah starts with a base, and every Masechta in the Shas starts with Daf Beis, and not with Aleph, to teach us that as much as we learned, we don't even know the very beginning. We don't even know Aleph. That's how vast the Torah is. There's no end to its comprehension. Satmar Rebbe says a different shot why all the Gemaras start with a base. Says all the Gemaras start with a base because you know what's on Daf Aleph? Daf Aleph is Yireh Shamayim. Before you learn, you have to have Yireh Shamayim. Kol sheyirasai keidemes l'chachmasai. If one's fear of heaven is before their chachma, then chachmasai miskayem. Is Daf Aleph? Daf Aleph is Braishis Chachma Yiras Hashem. That's Daf Aleph. There's a fascinating Gemara in Chulin on Daf Tzadik Aleph Amud Beis. The Gemara tells us how humans are more special to Hashem than the Malachi Asharis, than the celestial angels. Moshe says in Chulin, Chavivin Yisrael Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yisrael is more precious before Hashem, Yoiser Mimalachi Asharis, more than the angels. And the Gemara says, Yisrael Maskirin es Hashem achar shtei tevos, to show that Yisrael is closer to God, to Hashem. They mention Hashem after two words, Shema Yisrael Hashem. The angels could only mention God after three words, Kadosh, 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 Hashem. Shows we're closer to Hashem. Right? The angels could only mention Hashem after three, Kadosh, 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 Hashem. But we could mention Hashem after two, Shema Yisrael Hashem. Now you might ask, I don't know what you mean. The angels, they also say Baruch Kavod Hashem after two words. And they even say Hashem after one word, Yimloich Hashem Li'olam. It's a kasha in the Gemara Chula. And the answer to the Gemara is yes, but they can't start the conversation with less than three words. There's a barrier. They started with Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. There's a barrier of three words. We started with two words, Shema Yisrael. Now, why are we closer to Hashem? We know that. We know that we're closer to Hashem because we have the privilege and we have the challenge of choice. We can decide not to pay attention. Or we can decide not to go to minyan. The angel doesn't have that. The angel has to do it. Remember, I told you that by Yaakov it says that when he fought the Malach and the Malach couldn't do anything, so the Malach said, Shalcheni, send me away, ki olah shachar, dawn is breaking. And Rashi says, V'tzorach ani loy mashira, and I have to say song. Now, when my children would say, we have to bench, I would tell them, don't say we have to bench, say we want to bench. Don't say, oh yeah, I have to daven Mariv. I want to daven Mariv. So why does Rashi say that the Malach says, Sorach ani loy mashira? The answer is because the Malach has no choice. Remember what we say in Kedusha. We say in the Musaf of Shabbos, the Yochainam show favor to a nation Amayachadim Shemai that declares your name unique. Erev Avaykir, in the evening and the morning, B'chol Yom Tamid, every day, Pamayim Ba'ava, twice with love, Shema Omer. That's special about us. We can do it with love. I want to say Shema. That's why we get closer to Hashem after two words. Matter of fact, in a way, even though I daven the Ashkenaz, it would seem that in this point, the Nusach of Svard in Kedusha is more accurate than the Nusach of Ashkenaz. In Ashkenaz, we say, Nikadesh Shimcha Ba'olam, we sanctify your name in this world, Kishem, in the same way, Shemakdishim Oisei B'Shmei Marayin, that they sanctify him above. But it's not the same way. Our way is better. We make a choice. In the Nusach Svard, it only makes the comparison in the language. Nakdishach v'naritzach, we sanctify and we revere. Kinoyam siach soid sarfei kodesh, like the sweet secret speech of the fiery angels. So Nusach Svard only makes the comparison. Yes, we get the language from them, the secrets and all of the complexities of the language we get from them. But it's not Kishain. It's not the same way. Even the angels acknowledge it. Where do the angels acknowledge it? They say, Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzavakos. Holy, 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 O Lord of hosts. Okay? Maloicha la'aretz k'vaydai. Your glory fills the entire earth. Isn't it more glorious in the heavens? With all the fiery angels and galgalim and chayas HaKodesh. Why doesn't it say Maloicha la'shamayim k'vaydai? Why does it say Maloicha la'aretz k'vaydai? The answer is because down in the Aretz there's something that heaven doesn't got. That we fight off the temptation not to do it. That we choose to do it. Oh, Maloicha la'aretz k'vaydai. It's more than the heavens. The Vilna Gaon says such a fascinating thing. He says there's 4 places where we address Hashem after 2 words. Shema Yisrael Hashem. And all our blessings, Baruch Atah Hashem. In the beginning of the Torah, Braishis Gems. And V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha. And he says, and this is like something that's so, he says those are all hinted to in the bracha of Birchas Kriyas Shema. What do we say over there? V'keiraftanu l'shimcha agadol sela. V'keiraftanu, you brought us closer l'shimcha agadol, to your name. The Malachim could only come after 3, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. You brought us closer. V'keiraftanu l'shimcha agadol sela. Where? Be'emes, emes is Torah. Emes k'nei val timker, emes is Torah. Be'emes, that's Braishis bara Elikim. L'haydai zlecha, to thank you, that's Baruch Atah Hashem. Right? U'liyachedcha, to declare you unique, that's Shema Yisrael Hashem. Bi'ava, that's V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha. He says the 4 places that we're close to Hashem is Merumas and V'keiraftanu l'shimcha agadol sela be'emes, that's Braishis bara Elikim. Right? Be'emes, l'haydai zlecha, that's Baruch Atah Hashem. U'liyachedcha, that's Shema Yisrael Hashem. Bi'ava, that's V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha. It says, Vayera vayivoker yom echad. It was Erev and it was Boker yom echad. One day. So there's a fascinating Bala Ma'or. The Bala Ma'or says this is a source that the world is round. That Ha'aretz Kaduri. The ancients already knew it. First of all, it's Yerushalmi. Shalmi and Avodah Zarah. Yud Ches, Halacha Beis. Says that the world is round. But says the Bala Ma'or, that's the meaning. Vayi Erev Vayivoker. At the same time that it's Erev, in another place it's Boker. Because the world is round. Now, if you look carefully, the Ibn Ezra and the Ramban say this also. I wanted to say, well, how do you know that's Pshat? Maybe it simply means, the way we always learn it, it was evening, then it was morning, first day. But then, why does it have to say Vayihi 2 times? It could have said Vayi Erev Uvaykir Yom Echad. Why does it have to say Vayihi twice? Every word in the Torah is gold. It's telling you at the same time that it was Erev, somewhere else it was Boker. Now, I just want to talk for a moment. When you start the Torah, it's good to look at a little bit at the etymology of words. There's a fascinating Ibn Ezra. He says, why is evening called Erev and morning called Boker? I always thought that Boker, which is an anagram of Brak, which is a flash of light, that had something to do with the meaning of the word. But he says a very simple thing. Erev means when things are mu'urev, things are mixed and unclear. When you see faces in the evening, they're unclear. They're mu'urev. In the morning, boker means biker, to examine. You could differentiate. You could distinguish the faces. So Erev in the night, it's mixed. Mu'urav. In the morning, biker. In the morning, you could distinguish and examine who everybody is. That's the etymology of Erev and Boker. This is from a Rishon, from by the way, when we learn the Torah in the beginning, we have to know that this is part of learning Torah, to know the etymology of the words, because Lashon Kodesh is an intrinsic language. Every word is made up of letters that denote the actual thing that they're describing. Yehi Rakia b'soich hamayim. There's a fancy word that we use for the Rakia is the firmament. There's a Rakia inside the water, v'imavdil b'moyim l'moyim, and it separates the upper waters and the lower waters. But we don't refer to this as Rakia. We refer to this as Shemayim. Why do we use the term Shemayim and not Rakia? Says the Klei Yakar, it's a very important insight. Says the Klei Yakar because the Rakia separated the upper waters and the lower waters. Anytime there's a separation, there's Chalukah, Machloikis, that's no good. That's why the only day where it doesn't say Ki Tov is on the second day. Because there was Machloikis, there was division. And with this division, it's not good. Now, of course, the Chidush Yerim asks, but on the first day also Hashem separated the day and the night. And over there it says Ki Tov. And the well-known answer of the Ger Rebbe and others is that to separate different things, that's good. You have to separate between a Yid and a Goy, so you don't learn from his ways. You have to separate from Tomei to Tar, that you don't become Tomei. Right? That's good. But on the second day, there was a separation between, same thing, between water and water. A separation between the same things, that's a machloikis, and that's no good. That's why it doesn't say Kitayv, and that's why on the second day Gehenim was created. Because you need Gehenim for machloikis. That's what the Medrash says. Gehenim was created on the second day. I want to tell you something. This is a tradition that we have that shows the horror of machlokes. It's really Reb Shloime, the Heilige Reb Shloimke is a Vehil, had cats in his neighborhood. And he would put out bowls of drink for them. And he wouldn't allow the Hasidim to chase them away. They were wild cats. The Hasidim asked why he spends time catering to these wild cats. Why doesn't he shoo them away? Have the Hasidim put out traps, put out some poison. So he told them, these cats are Gilgulim. Somebody of Rav Shlemke's stature was able to see. These cats are Gilgulim. He says they're Gilgulim of Yidden that got involved in a fight between two Hasidic groups. And therefore they had to come back, not again as a human, not even as a kosher animal. They had to come back as a tummy dika cat. Cat is a tummy dika animal, an unclean animal. To be mechaper for the machlokes that they were involved in. Machlokes between Jews, between similar people. That's no good. That's why says the Klei Yakar, that's why we don't use the word rakia. Rakia denotes machlokes. We use the word shemayim. Shemayim, that denotes Eishen Mayim, the peace between fire and water. That denotes peace. That's a good word. Now, the Sefer Mosek Midvash by Rav Parchi, Holy Sefer, quotes an interesting Gemara and attaches it to this pasuk. Gemara asks a stira. There's two psukim. One pasuk says, "Ki gadol me ala shamayim chazdecha." Great above the heavens is your kindness. That's one pasuk. Ki gadol me ala shamayim chazdecha. But there's another pasuk that says, "Ki gadol ad shamayim chazdecha." That your kindness reaches the heavens. So which one is it? Is it above the heavens, or only until the heaven? So the Gemara answers, "Kan b'loy mi Torah lishma, kan b'loy mi Torah shaloi lishma." One who learns Torah for the sake of heaven, to fulfill the mitzvah of Dibarta Bam, to give nachas to Hashem, and one is who learns Torah in order to get covered, in order to get out of the house, because he's bored. Says the Mosek Midvash, that's alluded to over here. Yehi Rekia b'Seich HaMayim, v'Yimavdil be'Moyim l'Moyim. The Shemayim separates, the Rekia Shemayim separates between Moyim l'Moyim. Moyim is a Mayim al-Torah. And it separates between those that learn Torah Lishma and those that learn Torah Shalosh. Now, Torah Shalosh is also good. But that is only Kigadol Ad Shamayim Chazdecha. But if you learn Torah Lishma, that's Kigadol Me Ala Shamayim Chazdecha. Now, you'll say, Rabbi Weiss, you're talking about lofty ideas, till the heaven, above the heaven. It's not so lofty. If your Torah pierces the heavens, then you're in the world of peace. Because Ois is Shalom B'Mroim. Somebody that learns Torah Lishma can expect divine assistance for a life of peace. But it has to be Torah Lishma. It's Torah for other reasons, then it's Kigadol Ad Shemayim, but not doesn't get you into heaven. And also, it says that our Torah learning assists our davening. And we said that, it says in Akdamas, Savi v'chamid v'ragid diyilim b'la'usa. Desired, wanted, are those that weary themselves with the Torah. Sloisan v'chein mikabel, their tefillos are accepted, v'hanya ba'usa, and their petitions are helpful, but that's only when one learns Torah Lishma. That pierces the heavens. Then that's Ki Gadol Me'al Shemayim Chesdecha. Vayar Lekimes Hataninim Agdalim, we learn about the creation of the fish. Sometimes I mention over here the famous matzeva of a fish in Vienna. Go to Vienna, one of the sites in the cemetery to see is there's a matzeva, a monument in the shape of a fish. And on the monument it writes, it's written, Poi Nitman Hadog Shetzak Shema Yisrael. Here is buried the fish that cried Shema Yisrael. And as the legend has it, a man by the name of Shimon was preparing the fish, and it cried out Shema Yisrael. So he ran to the Rav, and if you do research, you have to dig for this. But if you do research, you'll find that the Rav was a very, very chashuv Rav. Reb Shapsi Alevi Horowitz, who wrote the famous Sefer, the Vavei HaAmudim. I quote him in this year, the Vavei HaAmudim. So Reb Shapsi Alevi told him to bury the fish and put a matzeva and write on the matzeva that here is buried the fish that cried out Shema Yisrael. Now, I always had a question about this story, that usually, well, the Gilgal, the way to Misakin is to prepare it for Shabbos and make a bracha on it and eat it for Shabbos, not to bury it or give it to Aniyim. So at first I thought maybe it was not a kosher fish. But the story that it was prepared by Shimon doesn't match that, because why would Shimon be preparing a catfish? I asked the Scully Rebbe, who was in Vienna after the war, and he told me that they made a mistake and they shouldn't have buried it. They should have given it to the poor. They should have eaten it for Shabbos. But that's before I knew that it was the Baal Vavei Amudim. It's not likely that the Baal Vavei Amudim made a mistake. So I wanted to learn, although I didn't find anybody to say this, but I wanted to learn that the Baal Vavei Amudim felt that it was a bigger tikkun for the neshama that was in a fish, for it to be buried and have a matzeva that people would talk throughout the ages, that there was a fish like this who would therefore prove the Teres HaGilgal and life after death. That was a bigger tikkun. Now, wow, time is running over here. Before I go any further, I want to thank our two sponsors, the diamond sponsor by my dear Talmud Ed Salah from London, thanking me for the shiurim and wishing good bracha from Hashem to all of Klal Yisrael, and a partial sponsorship from Shifra Kashani in loving memory of her mother on her 12th yahrzeit, Mindel Toiva Bas Har Yaleib. Should have a lichtige Gan Eden and be a Mlitzi Yeshara. And remind you, if you would like to sponsor Noyach, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Regular sponsorship is $360, a diamond sponsor is $540. It's the first time that I noticed that the pasuk Nasa Adam is Perek Aleph, pasuk Chavav. Now, some people maintain that you cannot put any significance in the psukim because they were actually made by a galach. But the Klozmer Rebbe used to give significance to the psukim. So if the Heilige Shefa Chaim could do it, then I could do it as well. I always like to point out that the pasuk of Na'asav and Ishma is Perek Chav Daled Pasuk Zayin. And that's 24/7, because Na'asav and Ishma is something that applies 24/7. So here, I never noticed this, but this is Perek Aleph, the first chapter, Pasuk Chavav. Chavav is Yud Kei Vav Kei, the ineffable name. Because it's when he said Nasa Adam and man was created that he became Yud Kei Vav Kei, means that he's Odoi Nakol. That's when he became Odoi Nakol, when he created man. Beforehand he didn't have subjects. It's when he became an Odoi Nakol. And we know that Nasa Adam, he originally made man and woman together, Zocher, Nekeva, Braham. And through the making of a man and a woman, we have the tool to bring the ineffable name into our life. The ineffable name, Chavav, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is Shechina. And that's Aleph Chavav. When there's Aleph, when there's togetherness between the husband and wife, Ish v'Isha Shalom Beineim, Shechina Shriya Beineim. So actually that's the time where we could have the unification, Aleph, and bring Chavav, bring the Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Zohar says that Nasa Adam, we know that it says Nasa Adam in the plural. Now this is the second time that the Torah uses a language that could cause the sinners to make a mistake. As we said initially, Braishis Gems is an example of tzaddikim yelchu bam u'poishim yukashlu bam. Righteous will walk with it, and sinners will stumble, because the sinner could say, Braishis Gems, God used rachis, He used building blocks. Right? So it would have been better for it to say Elikim bara Braishis, but you know why it doesn't say Elikim bara Braishis? So the Medrash says, Kol makom she'ata motzei gedulasei, wherever you find Hashem's greatness, shamata motzei an v'sinusei, there you find His humility. So here in the beginning of the Torah, where you hear about the greatness that God created the world, Hashem didn't want to start the Torah with His own name. He wanted to demonstrate, He wanted to project humility. So I'm not starting with my name. Instead of Elikim bar Braishis, it says Braishis bar Elikim. Even though the sinners would stumble. Here also. It says Nasa Adam. The heretics say, you see, God didn't create it Himself. It was a shutfis. There was a duality. Na'aseh Adam, let us make man. Now Rashi says that we know it's not say, because later on it says Vayivra Elikim in the singular. But why did he say Na'aseh Adam? Because he took advice from the angels to teach that one should take advice even from his inferiors. Again, teaching humility. And he chose to teach humility a second time, even though it would cause the heretics to sin. But the lesson of humility is the crown of all virtues. Ekev anova yiras Hashem. But besides humility is fear of God. Taisa says in 12 paragraph Amos that shows that humility is equal to the fear of God. Humility is the crown of virtues. But listen to what the Imrei Emes says over here. Well, first I'll tell you the Zohar. The Zohar says Nasa Adam means that Hashem spoke to all the animals and said, Nasa Adam, let us make man. The Zohar says that every animal gave a little bit of its strength to man. So man got the swiftness of the deer, the might of the lion, got from every animal a little bit. That's Nasad, that's a Zohar. It's a fascinating thing. Man got from the shar, man got from the snake. But the Imrei Emes, the Ger Rebbe says that Nasa Adam is pluralized because God is talking to all of mankind. And he says, Nasa Adam. Nasa Adam means we should all make ourselves a mensch. Says that's one of the first objectives of man. Nasa Adam. Let us make ourselves a mensch. He says that we're not that way. Innately, it says Yetzer ha'adam ra min urav. The inclination of a person is evil from its youth. He quotes a pasuk from Habakkuk Hanavi, that says, "Vatasa adam kidigei hayam." Man are like fish in the sea, where the bigger fish will swallow the smaller fish. So instead of a doggy world, it's a fishy world. A bigger fish will swallow. Yetzer leva adam ram and urav. Nasa adam. We have to conquer that and make ourselves mention. The great Gaon. Remember the Gaon are even before Rishonim. This is even before Rashi. The great Rav Sadia Gaon says, I'm going to quote, Ki ikir brias ha'adam ba'olam hu l'shaber midas ra'y shalai. The primary purpose of the creation of man is to break his bad traits. That's Nasa Adam. Or like the Bali Musa say, we say in our davening, La'olam yehei Adam. The first thing always is you should be a mensch. La'olam yehei Adam. B'Sol Salanta says, it's harder to change one midah than to learn all of Shas. It's hard to learn 2,711 blot. It's hard. It's even harder to change a trait. It's hard. But that's why we were put in the world. Nasa Adam. Okay, of course, as you know, this is only the tip of the iceberg. I only give you a little taste. I only give you a tiny drop. And we should be inspired. First of all, everybody should be inspired to find the time to be Mavis Sedra. It's not easy to find the time to review the parasha twice with the Unkelos. So therefore Hashem said, I'll give you a big reward. I'll give you more life and more quality of life. And whoever does that, it's the first place, school in Shas, to live long. In the beginning of Masechtas Brachos. So let's try to do it. If you don't do it in the beginning, you'll say, I already missed it, I'll do it next time. Don't let that happen. And try to learn more about the Pasha. Whether it's learning the Mamloyes, the Medrash says, whether it's looking at a little bit into the Balaturim, the Dazakain and Balei Taisvus, whether it's the Klayakar, so many things, the Malbim. Hashem should give us the smarts and the time to do so, and everybody should have a wonderful Shabbos.